So, all right, people are joining, and here we'll do my professional introduction here to make it really sound. And welcome to the Dean's Report Live, also known as the Dean Obeidallah Show. And who is with us? Someone who needs no introduction. It's our friend, award-winning journalist Joy Reid. She has her Substack right here. She has the Joy Reid Show on YouTube, which obviously I really recommend, and I've been on it. And it's so nice, Joy, to see you again, my friend. Thank you for joining us.
It's always good to be with you, Dean, my friend. It's always good to actually get to see you instead of just texting you.
This is better. So, look, there's something about you that I've always admired, and that is you speak bluntly. When you were in corporate media, you didn't do the corporate media bullshit. It wasn't the both sides of bullshit. Here, fascism, I used to say it on your show, and you would say it. I'd go to other shows and say fascism. The anchor would look at me like, did that just come out of his mouth? Like, right, that's the world. So let me, and I'm brash. I've been told that by a professor from Yale who said, where are you from? I'm like, New Jersey, because that's why you're brash. I'm like, okay, fair. We're brash. So let me ask you the blunt reality that I think we're at war. I think Donald Trump has declared war on us. I don't think they're here to govern. They're here to rule us. And the troops in the street in Washington, D.C., it's as if Washington, D.C. has fallen in this war now to Donald Trump. I really believe, and I don't want to be dark with people. I'm just telling you, it's a Cold War. I actually think we're at war, and Trump is waging a war on us right now.
1,000%. If the exact same facts were happening in Poland right now,
right,
the mainstream media that will not say fascism would report that as a fascist takeover. Everything that you're seeing happening here, pick it up and put it in Germany, put it in Italy. Troops in the streets, specifically harassing only people of color, harassing only the outgroup, going up to random Black and brown people and demanding to see their identification as if this is apartheid South Africa in 1980, which is exactly what apartheid was. An authority comes up to you and demands to see your papers. That's apartheid. Right? If this were happening in any other country, we would report it as a fascist takeover, as a military coup. What you're seeing is the coup that began on January 6th when civilian armed people ransacked the Capitol, armed, and attempted to prevent the peaceful transfer of power. That coup never ended because just like the Civil War, it was never punished. And so since those unpunished insurrectionists were allowed to go back into the population. Then they got a pardon, including the most violent ones who attacked police officers. Then they got essentially an incentive to turn around and join the official Gestapo, aka ICE.
Mm-hmm.
They're telling any able-bodied, particularly white man, no matter what your background is, whether you're violent, doesn't matter. You can just have this badge, no training, no understanding of the Constitution, and you get to beat up, pick up, and kidnap any brown person you see on the street. And Tom Homan admitted, and they've now admitted in court, that it can be based on the language they're speaking or their race. So now what we have is a literal apartheid system that's been imposed by a military dictatorship. If this was in a novel, you'd call it The Handmaid's Tale, because you combine that with the suppression of women's rights, the suppression of freedom of speech, the fact that you can be incarcerated. We just interviewed on the Joy Reid Show Mahmoud Khalil, who was literally incarcerated with no charges filed for 103 days for his beliefs. If that happened in another country, we would call it a fascist coup. It's now a military coup where the United States military is being put on the streets of any city with a Black mayor, only cities with Black mayors, and told, roust any brown or Black person you see, harass them, detain them, throw them in a van. I don't know how it could be more clear.
I know. And what are we seeing from corporate media? We hear them talk about, well, Democrats, you don't want to seem soft on crime. So do you really want to push back on the statistics? And what they're not talking about is, does anyone listening think Donald Trump cares about the Democrats in Washington, D.C.? It's not like it's like, oh, those poor Democrats, there's crime there. I'm going to send the National Guard to protect them. Donald Trump said in July he hates Democrats. Literally, I hate Democrats. This is not here to protect us. It's here to oppress us. That's why, and that's the test case. And how corporate media, Joy, can you share anything? You used to be in the corporate media world. What goes on? Because they're all saying the same thing.
Yes.
Soft on crime. You don't want to be soft on crime. This is soft on authoritarianism. That's what the corporate media is doing. You're soft on fascism. He doesn't care about us. It's not about crime. It's about control. And I don't get what's wrong with corporate media.
I watched a little clip, unfortunately, ruined my mental health this this morning by listening to a clip from one of the major networks. I won't say which it was. And they were having this conversation that, first of all, was really too casual for me. Because that's one of the issues is that corporate media folks, because they really aren't necessarily political scientists and they don't really let Jason Johnson's a political scientist, but he don't have a show on corporate media, right?
Right,
If
right.
you're you're not the kind of person that gets this. It's people who are generally, they read Politico that morning and then they all share that same Politico article and then that becomes the conventional wisdom they all believe. And the current sort of Politico conventional wisdom is, wow, are Democrats at risk of being wrong on this issue with voters because voters don't like crime? And so they've now turned this into a conversation about whether crime is bad enough in DC to necessitate the takeover. And once one mainstream media outlet says that, it's the same way. Look, I'll give y'all a little tea about the way local news works. Whatever local news station, if you're in Miami when I was in South Florida, they literally see what's in the Miami Herald, and then they send a reporter out to go and try to interview the same people listed in the Miami Herald story and try to just redo that story for TV. They're not doing enterprise journalism in local news. They're just doing
Right.
whatever's in the local paper. So whatever the local main paper's conventional wisdom is becomes what's on local news. They're not doing a lot of enterprise, okay? And I tried to do enterprise as a local journalist, and they didn't really like it because I was trying to do it on the Iraq War and the lies about the Iraq War, and they weren't interested in
I
me, okay? They
know.
didn't like
No,
me very
wow.
much, right?
No.
And so the reality is that there's a conventional wisdom because no one's an expert. So, and the experts are saying things that make people uncomfortable. So the easy narrative here is, well, we need to find out if we need to litigate is crime bad enough, and so they all do it. But they are not, but they could do 3 minutes of research in Google and find that Donald Trump in May said crime in DC is way down. They could literally do even less than 30 seconds of research to just listen to Kash Patel, the FBI director, stand next to Donald Trump as he's announcing he's taking over DC and say crime is way, way down, and then try to quickly clean it up by saying, oh, but that's because of something Trump did. No, crime's been down for 2 years because the high level of crime was during the pandemic when Trump was president. That's when the big spike in crime happened because a whole bunch of young people were home with nothing to do and no money. And that is the easy precursor to lots of robberies and carjackings. There were a lot of bored, broke kids at home. But in places like Baltimore, D.C., Birmingham, and Chicago and Los Angeles, those Black mayors, because they themselves understand the criminal justice system can be hard on Black people, they're doing all these interventions. They're doing things like having summer jobs programs to keep the kids busy. Boredom equals crime because bored kids of all races will start robbing and doing bad stuff, right? So they're doing programs that are actually dramatically reducing crime. Also in Oakland, Barbara Lee, who used to be associated with the Black Panthers. So she knows the answer to crime is breakfast. The answer to crime is lunch you can eat so you don't have to worry. If the answer to crime is having a basketball league to go to, having a summer job to go to, having something to do so your ass ain't bored. And so they're doing these things and it's working. And you can see it in the numbers. All these journalists could look that up, but it's easier to say, well, the president says crime is up. And then the Democrats, are they going to be wrong on crime? So it's laziness. And also, it's a very big fear, and you know this because we've both worked in corporate media. They don't want to say Donald Trump is a fascist because the people they work for at the top of these media organizations aren't journalists. They are corporate suits who want to do business that the government has to approve. So they want to do mergers and acquisitions. They own a little media network, but they're not in the journalism business. They're in the mergers and acquisitions business, and Trump can stop them from doing it. So if you call him a Nazi and a fascist, his FCC is going to say, you can't do your merger. You can't do that acquisition, Skydance. That deal is dead. They now have such complete control over the government, and they use it to personally go after Trump's enemies. So if you make Trump mad, he will literally stop your business from operating. That's one of the reasons that they won't tell the truth.
And because I want people to understand, I'm actually being specific. I'll give an example and name someone. And it's not about this person. It's a symptom of the issue. Yesterday on CNN, Harry Enton, who's the data guy, goes on and literally says Donald Trump's numbers on crime are like Air Jordan. He's flying and he's comparing it to Joe Biden a year ago. What was Donald Trump's net approval on handling crime in the poll he had behind him? +1. Literally, folks, +1 at like zero is the next below, +1. But Biden was down 20 points. Who cares what Biden's numbers were a year ago? Like we're living in now. So
Yeah.
Trump, and it was only one of the only issues he has anything even positive. He's +1. He's almost at break even. And Harriet is like, he's like Air Jordan flying over Joe Biden. And there's the headline, there's the narrative. And that's what hurts this issue. Edward R. Murrow famously said there are not two equal sides to every issue. And I don't know why corporate media does, and I know why. We know it's a business reading. Look at it. If you watch that press conference with Trump, just lying. And the journalists, almost none of them challenge him more than one little soft, oh, can I press here a little? But not a follow up because you're gone. You're no longer
Right.
in the White House anymore. And you might lose your job at that network. And that's the world we live in right now. So,
Yeah.
as a human being, there's an impact on the journalists. I want them to stand up, but they could lose their job. And that's the world they're navigating.
They're looking at me. They're looking at Jim Acosta. They're looking at Don Lemon. They see what happened to what's the gentleman's name that did CBS just lost because he posted about Stephen Miller being a fascist. They
But
see what happens to us, and that is a chilling message to any journalist with a mortgage and any journalist with some kids in private school, and they want to pay their tuition. At the end of the day, they're not willing to sacrifice their job security to say Donald Trump is a fascist, even though Donald Trump is a fascist, and that's why they're afraid of him. Literally, the reason they can't say he's a fascist is because he's a fascist, and they know that the punishment for personally annoying him is what happened to Stephen Colbert. He can't take a joke, so Stephen Colbert's got to go. I promise you, Saturday Night Live, they've already had Fallon hosted Gutfield, who there's no reason for Gutfield to be on Fallon, except they're all trying to take the knee and do things that'll make Trump happy. They're like, oh, don't worry, we'll get rid of PBS and we'll put in the fake thing from Prager University, which is not a university. We'll tell children slavery was okay. We promise, Mr. President. We'll change the Smithsonian, Mr. President, and say slavery was great and the blacks loved it and it was full of employment, Mr. President. What more can we do, Mr. President? Can we give you $1 billion, Mr. President? Would you like $2 billion? They're all jumping, they're falling to their knees like bowling pins.
right.
Because they're all like, but Mr. President, will you please let us do our mergers and acquisitions? And let me tell you why this doesn't work. DC, I just interviewed on this State of the People. We did State of the People Power Tour, which I don't know if you all are aware of it. We did this whole tour starting in February to try to alert Black communities specifically that y'all, we're going to be targeted. Because a lot of Black folks were like, sorry, white people failed us. They wouldn't vote for the Black woman president. So y'all are on your own. F off is what a lot of Black people are saying to white America. You deal with it. You go protest. We ain't with y'all. But we were trying to like impart to a lot of Black communities, hey, you can be mad at the white people if you want to, but they're coming for you. When they start knocking over on brown people, you're next. Because the minute that they get really good and lubricated up in their minds about they can knock out some Black people, some brown people and drag them off into vans and throw them into the van, Blacks are always next. We're always on the menu. So we're like, let's get in there and tell Black folks, this is at stake for you. Now it's coming to pass because it's only Black-run cities that are getting the military on their streets and the military rousting them now. And they're going in the Black community too. Okay, so what happened to them? So last night, the State of the People Power Tour, we came back together and we did an emergency live 2-hour special. And I interviewed Muriel Bowser, the mayor of DC, for that special. I'm going to play some of it tonight on the Joy Reid show. And I asked her if she approved her police chief putting out this executive order saying, we're going to cooperate with ICE. We're going to do whatever ICE needs. We're going to help them out. You know what happened 40 minutes after we got off the air?
I
Pam
know.
Bondi announced that now the police chief that did that to appease Trump will now report to the Homeland Security Director because he's white and she's Black. Donald Trump has racist Tourette's. The minute a Black person takes the knee, he says, good, I'll take that Negro. Now you go report to this white man because I don't like Black people. And Black people can't be in charge of shit, including the police department. So he's not going to let that Black woman be in charge of the police department, even though she appeased him because she's Black.
Look, when it comes to fascists, history tells you have two options. One is submit, the other is fight. That's your choice. If you submit, you're not free from persecution. It's just delayed generally. If you're in the group that the majority hates, right? So if you're in journalism, if you're Black, if you're brown, if you're Muslim, they're coming for you. If you're gay, they're coming from you. Transgender. They're
Yes.
coming for you. So you can appease them for a few minutes and hold the shark off for just a little bit. He's going to come and bite you. And speaking of racism, I love, because I do get your Substack and I read them. You talked about the gerrymandering Texas, the racist component where corporate media ignored. The Texas Democrats were raising it in interviews and on corporate media, and no one wanted to talk about it. But you raise it because the truth is, white people are 39% of the voting population in Texas. In the new map, they've given themselves two new white majority districts. So 65% of the districts in a state that's 39% white is now majority white. 65%. This is apartheid we're talking about happening in South Africa, in Texas, South Africa. But that's what's happening. They literally have given, it's about white power. That's the whole thing. I'm so glad you reached. So what can you share about it? Because I think it's important people frame this right way. It is about preserving white power. That's what we're dealing with right here.
And Texas is already an apartheid state. The state is majority non-white. It has demographics very similar to California, but a little bit more black. So California is only about, I believe, 6% black, 9% Asian American, something like that, and like 39% Latino. So, but both Texas and California have Hispanic majorities. They're not majorities meaning 50% or more, but the largest demographic group in both of those states is Latino. But in California, if you are Hispanic, you can actually have a little bit of power. In Texas, you have none. You have one statewide official who's technically Hispanic, Ted Cruz, but Ted don't really claim y'all. He's kind of like what Clarence Thomas is to the blacks. He and Rubio are to y'all. Now, he don't really give a damn about y'all. He left y'all to drown, left the state when the grid went down. He don't care about y'all. He doesn't even really like embrace the Hispanic. He don't care. So the reality is they're now going to take the second largest demographic group in Texas is white folks, right? As you said, they're about 39%, but Hispanics are like 40.
Yep.
But what they're doing is they're going to try to give them like 70% of the congressional seats. They're going to throw off a couple to Hispanics because they think Hispanics are trending Trump's way. But the blacks, the largest number of black people in America is not Mississippi, it's Texas. They have 4.3 million African Americans. That's like 4 Alabamas worth of black people. That's like 3 Mississippi's worth of black people. It's the most blacks in America. Those 4.3 million blacks in the new map will be represented by 2 members of Congress. 2. Right now, they only have 4. But again, in Houston and Dallas, those are where the black people are concentrated. They really don't live all over the state. If you look at the map of Texas, it's massive. But there are 2 tiny little blue dots where the blacks are. Houston and Dallas, those 2 counties that encompass those 2. They're taking all but one of the 5 seats they're switching from those 2 black districts. They're taking the district that your friend Jasmine Crockett, everyone loved Jasmine.
Yep.
They're taking her district and the district of another black guy named VC and merging them together. And then they're taking another district that is the most historic district in the state, Barbara Jordan's old district, Sylvester Turner's old district, Sheila Jackson Lee's old district, and taking that and another district and merging them together. So the 4 go to 2, and then it becomes a bloodbath between these 4 African-American members, including the cane shaker. He also is one of the ones who's going to get deaded in those. They're going to make him go up against another one, right? Al Green. So they're taking all of these major, like, powerhouse Democrats and making them all food fight for 2 seats. Then they're taking a Hispanic district Cuellar is in, and making 2 Hispanics fight it out for that seat. So they're literally saying black and brown people, according to the current Injustice Department, were given too much power by the Texas Republican legislature. That somehow the Texas Republicans disenfranchised white Texans by giving black and brown people too many seats. And let me just tell y'all how super racist it is. And not all the Democrats have been saying this. 3 black Democrats have said this out of all the Democrats. It is Al Green, who came out and said, y'all don't want to say racism because y'all get uncomfortable. It's Jasmine Crockett, who said this is racist. And it's one state senator named State Representative Jolanda Jones. She's a state rep. She's an attorney. And she went viral for saying, I'm a lawyer. And I'm telling you that not only is this super racial gerrymandering, but if you don't say it's racial gerrymandering and call it what it is, y'all about to lose this Supreme Court case. This will go to the Supreme Court. And John Roberts is just waiting to go up against these white Democrats who are saying, this is a political gerrymander. You're trying to take seats from us to take away our right to health care. You're trying to take our right to hold you accountable in the Congress. It's political. The minute you say that, John Roberts is going to go, gotcha. Gotcha. The only time John Roberts has ever ruled to stop gerrymandering is when it's racial.
Right.
Louisiana just got held up. The only reason that happened is because it was clearly racial. These damn Democrats got on their damn website that it's political. They're about to lose that case. And she said, y'all are going to lose. And then you got other Democrats going, I guess it's time for us to go back. We won the messaging war. No, it isn't. You have to stay out. Because if you give them a quorum, y'all, they're going to pass the maps. And they're only doing this. They're saying they're going to get Clyburn's seat in South Carolina, Black. They're going to go to Missouri, take a Black seat there. They're only going after mostly Black seats. Do y'all not see that this is racist?
Of course, it's the white supremacist Hunger Games. That's what they're doing. They're like, let's pit people of color against each other. I had Kendall Scudder on my show, the Democratic state chair, who's a white guy who called it racial gerrymandering as well. Because yes, partisan gerrymandering, the Supreme Court will not interfere. They'd already put those cases off. Racial gerrymandering is where the Voting Rights Act still gets implicated. They're trying to end the Voting Rights Act. This entire administration's goal is to take us before 1964, the Civil Rights Act, before the 1965 Voting Rights Act, where you're seeing it issue after issue. They've already taken us before Roe v. Wade. So this is we're going back to a Jim Crow time that will affect not just Black people, but primarily Black people, brown people as well. Anyone who's not white and right. And they're not right in the real sense of it. Last thing I want to touch on.
And by the way, can I just say, there is a significance to Elon Musk becoming Donald Trump's boss. Back in the day, when I wrote my Trump book, I interviewed a white South African professor who told me that after Barack Obama won in 2012, white South Africans from the party that was the Apartheid party in South Africa reached out to American Republicans urgently with a 911 and said to them, if you all don't become, quote unquote, a white interests party, if you don't explicitly become that, because you've been sub rosa a white interest party since Nixon, but if you don't become a white interests party explicitly and get your white people to vote on their skin color and to vote in defense of whiteness, the same thing that happened to us in South Africa is going to happen to you. That warning went up 911. The South Africanization of the United States Republican Party started after Obama. And what you've seen is the influence, the increasing influence of white South Africans. Peter Thiel, who is essentially the real boss of J.D. Vance. You think about the fact that they are now openly following, what is the guy's name? The techno-feudalism guy that is openly saying we need a dictatorship. We need to go to a dictatorship type of a system. And he also believes slavery was right. You're starting to see people like Vance who genuflect toward open white nationalist belief. Not Andreessen, there's another one. Y'all put it in the chat. And what they're doing is you're seeing people like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, Curtis Yarvin. Thank you, Curtis Yarvin. These are Yarvinites. Go and Google what Curtis Yarvin believes. He believes that there needs to be a racial hierarchy. Read Project 2025. It's saying that the reason they want to undo the 1619 Project and multiculturalism is because it tries to hide the natural ethnic, racial, and gender hierarchy. And so what they're doing with Project 2025 is saying we need a hierarchical system. They look to white South Africa, white-controlled South Africa as a model. What did you have in white South Africa? If you were Black, and you're the Black majority in white South Africa in the 80s and 90s up until it was overthrown, you could be asked to show your papers, your identification papers needed to always be in your hands, and you could be asked for it by any authority. You actually could be asked by any white civilian. That is what they are now already implementing throughout the United States in every Black-run city. Black and brown people are being demanded to show their papers, and even sometimes when they do, they get detained
Mhm.
without charges and charged with not being a legitimate American. They've done this to American citizens, they've done it to students. This is South Africa-style apartheid, and it's being enforced the same way that apartheid was, by military troops in the streets. If y'all don't wake the hell up and see what they're doing, and it is directly being influenced by white South Africans who now also have an open door to immigrate here, only them. They can come because that's
Yeah,
who they want here.
yeah. Trump banned refugees coming, but white South Africans were fine because apparently we were low on white people. It was like, let's
Yes.
import some white people. No
No, but
tariff
they
on
are
white
low on white
people.
people. But wait a minute, you're joking, Dean, because you're hilarious, but it's true. They look,
I know.
the reality is there have been, y'all need to go back and read some of the things the right were saying about birth rates. They used to say it on MSNBC. MSNBC used to have right-wing shows and left-wing shows. And
Oh
I
yeah.
will never forget, there's a guy who ended up going to Fox later who literally did a segment on the fact that white women weren't having enough kids. You've heard J.D. Vance scream about the low birth rates. They're obsessed with it. Elon Musk screaming about birth rates. They're not talking about birth rates about people like me. I made 3 humans. They're mad about it. I keep making Black people. I'm unmixed African. They're like, no, no, not you, Joy. Stop making babies. We need the white ladies to make babies. Go home, stop working, get out of the workforce. They are paranoid about birth rates. Why? Because they don't think they have enough white people. They need more white Christians. Now they're screaming that white women, did you see? I think it wasn't one of these right wingers was like, the problem is white women in college are learning the message that they shouldn't marry and have children. They're being fed bad values. Charlie Kirk, I think, said it. And that's what we need to undo is white collegiate women because they also vote wrong. You had J.D. Vance retweeting this insane pastor who I believe is the pastor of Pete Hegseth, who is saying that we need to get rid of the 19th Amendment, that women need to be subordinate to men. They're preaching what's in the Handmaid's Tale. And it isn't about me having, it's not about Black people having too many kids or, God forbid, Hispanics who are already, they're more than Black people at this point because they actually are young and have high birth rates. They're worried about the white birth rate. They're worried they don't have enough white people. And they're like, we will export brown, we will export Black, get rid of them. We will denaturalize as many browns as we can to make a whiter country. It's
And
open.
And that's why they were importing the white people. And again, there was no tariffs on white people coming into the country. Like they're tariff free. Last thing, because you covered it on your show, I used to go on, and you're still covering it, and that's Gaza, the horrors of Gaza. I've covered it a great deal on my show. I know you recently did an episode talking about what's going on. Well, what can you share that stays with you, and the idea that this is not over. The horrors continue every day. I was just at an event last night talking to a doctor. He was a U.S. combat surgeon in Iraq. He actually worked on Tammy Duckworth. He did surgery on her. He said what he's seen in Gaza, and he's gone there volunteering, is worse than any war theater he's ever been to.
Yeah.
It's horrific. And it continues on right now. And we're seeing the right-wing members of the Netanyahu administration, Smotrich, who was like the finance minister, openly talking yesterday. There's not going to be a Palestinian state. It's over. The dream of Palestine is over. And what troubles me is the media doesn't cover these right-wingers, Netanyahu, Smotrich, Ben-Gvir. They want a Jewish-only land, like the settlements are Jewish-only, with the Christians and Muslims gone. And I don't know why our corporate media doesn't touch on it. That's not a mainstream Jewish view. It's not a mainstream Israeli view. But it's the view of the right-wingers who run that government right now. So they dehumanize Palestinian Christians and Muslims, which is why you can kill them the way they are. And now they're openly getting ready to ethnic cleanse them and make all of it, from the river to the sea, Jewish only. That's their goal right now. And our media's just like yawning and barely covering it.
Yeah, the media is barely covering it, and it's been one of the most sort of depressing things about both the media's take on this and frankly the Democratic Party's take on this. And as somebody that has had the exact same view on this since I was in junior high school, I'm not one of these Tucker Carlson Johnny come latelys. This is going to be good for my metrics on YouTube, so let me go ahead and switch sides on this issue. Or I don't know where Marjorie Taylor Greene got this from, but what's interesting to me is, you know what? Welcome to the party. MAGA base people at the MAGA base, and the Joe Rogans of the world, the podcast world, they're off this train. They do not accept what Israel is doing to the Palestinians. I think a lot of them, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, are waking up to the fact that so many Palestinians are actually Christian, that Christian churches are also being obliterated in Gaza. I don't think people understand that when Abraham came from the land of Ur, which is supposedly Iran, he had more than one child. And his child, Ishmael, who was his eldest child, is the father of Islam. And his younger child, who is the father of Judaism, is also the father of Christianity. But when they left Canaan and when they arrived in Canaan and were told, don't mix with the Canaanites and wipe them out, and Isaac is the father of Judaism and Christianity. But the people who were left behind, the people who descended from Abraham, include the local people, Mizrahi Jews, who are Middle Eastern Jews. They look just like Palestinians. They look like you. And you've got Palestinians who are both Christian and Muslim. They're all children of Abraham. You have Ashkenazi Jews who are European, and then you have Sephardic Jews who are somewhere sort of like kind of Cypriot. But in the region are all three of those people. So there's a claim of indigeneity being made by all three of those groups of people. But those are not the people that are the settlers at all. The people who are the settlers are coming from New Jersey and from Warsaw and from Moscow. They coming from far out of there and saying, we're going to take this land from you because of this biblical claim that has not been made by the local people. Those people weren't doing it. They were living under the Ottoman Empire like, what's up? They were all living together, all good. But the imported people who come in and say, oh, I'm of the same religion, therefore I can have this land, even though I'm literally from New Jersey or Warsaw. If I said Dean, if I said, because my people came originally from Ghana, enslaved from Ghana, and then went to Guyana, and I dropped in Ghana and walked up to somebody's farm and said, back in biblical times, my people lived here. You got to get out this house. This is my house now. And I put a gun to their head and took it. You would say I was insane. But we're saying that Smotrich and these other people who believe that they have a biblical claim, that is not the way land works. That's not the way international law works. You don't just get to take land because you've got a book in your hand that says that people of your same religion used to live here. That's not how that works. These people live here. You can't just take their land. And so the reality is, I don't understand why this has been so hard for Democrats in the media to be honest about this, but I can tell you this, they've lost the base. The base of the Democratic Party thinks this is madness. Killing children and starving them is insane. We understand that Bibi Netanyahu is a war criminal. Smotrich is a war criminal. These people are criminals who want land. Don't put this on religion. This isn't about Judaism. Jewish people that I know are the most opposed to this. They oppose it more than anybody. The Jewish folks I know hate this more than almost anybody else because you're perverting their religion and twisting it into a giant land grab. You're literally anti-Semitic if you're saying that what Judaism is theft. What Judaism is claiming inheritance over other people's property. What Judaism is starving children. No, it's not. That goes against the very bases of Judaism. It is anti-Jewish to do this. But these people are disguising their greed for property in religion. And it is, to me, if I can use the word, it is a shanda on Judaism to claim that this is what Judaism is. I'm so tired of people trying to equate Zionism and this land taking with Judaism. It's not. The people who were original Zionists were atheists. They were not religious. That is a secular state that is doing wrong and doing evil, and they should be opposed. And the Democrats need to stop funding them, stop supporting them, stop speaking up for them. They don't care about the hostages either. So throwing that hostage line in there, Bibi Netanyahu don't care about those people.
No.
We need to stop this bombing and starving of these people in Gaza and stop this theft in the West Bank. It is colonialism. It is wrong. And I don't care how you try to explain it. They're having apartheid over there. It's wrong. And I don't care what you say and how much the mainstream media hates saying it. It's wrong. And y'all know it's wrong.
Yeah, and before we wrap up, I'll just say on a personal level, I mean, decades ago, my grandmother's land in the West Bank was taken because she was the wrong religion in the wrong place. That was the way the settlers view it. And now my family has been there for generations in Batir, a small town outside of Bethlehem. the settlers are now trying to drive them from their land and their neighbors because they're emboldened by Netanyahu and Mike Huckabee. And Trump doesn't really care, but Huckabee cares a lot, and Marco Rubio cares. And now they're trying to colonize their land right in real time in 2025. They've driven 30 to 40,000 Palestinians off their land in the West Bank. We're not doing anything wrong. They're just living their lives. They're just viewed as inferior by the religious supremacists. And I think it's important that we understand what white supremacy is.
Yes.
The ones on the right in Israel are Jewish supremacists. It's supremacy. So the rest of us, if you're Christian or Muslim or anything else that's not their faith, you're inferior. You're to
And not only
demonize.
that, it's Jewish supremacists, but it's also white Christian nationalism rearing
That's
its head
part of it,
again.
right? That's
The majority of the people who are the most super Zionists aren't even Jewish. It is people like Joe Biden, who's a Catholic. It's people like, Mike Huckabee, who's an evangelical. The evangelicals are the ones. There's a thing called the Esther Project, which we just had the folks on from. We're going to have them on again. They are fighting the Esther Project people. They themselves are Jewish, but the people who wrote the Esther Project are the people who wrote Project 2025 who are not Jewish. They're Christian. They're evangelical, and I say Christian with asterisk because they ain't really Christian. They are evangelicals. So evangelicals are driving this because they think they can bring on the end times by having Israel take back all of what they're calling Judea and Samaria, which is bullshit. If we're going to call that Judea and Samaria, then I want to call Iran Persia. Then I want to start calling it all Mesopotamia. Are we using old names now? Can we call Yemen Kush? Are we switching the names again? Are we saying now we're the land of Kush? We don't just get to pick biblical names for shit. That's not the way it works. But this is what they get away with because people are like empathetic toward Jews who died in the Holocaust. Those people are spitting in their graves. This is not what they died for. They did not die for this. You're twisting their deaths into evil and using their deaths to do to Palestinians the pogroms that were done to your people. This is sickening. It's sick. And for y'all to keep trying to put this on Jewish people, you're the one causing anti-Semitism because then people take it out on the random Jewish person who doesn't know who's not involved in this. Y'all are harming Jewish people because this is not what they are down for. And I'm telling you, nobody Jewish I know is into this. They're all upset about it because they're like, you're twisting my religion into this bullshit. It's not right.
Yep. And even some of the more right-wing American Jews, who at one point were more supportive of Netanyahu, have come out now to denounce the starvation and what's going on in Gaza.
Come on.
But others have been there from the beginning, have been like, this is after October 7th. They understood there would be some going after Hamas, but then it became a war on Palestinian Christians and Muslims in Gaza. And so,
and on journalists. They're killing journalists. Where is the journalistic community?
Almost 200. And the Citizens Committee for Protecting Journalists has talked about it, but the American media barely covers it. But
silent.
Joy, thank you so much for spending a chunk of time with me here on a Friday. I really appreciate it. And people can check out your YouTube show, the Joy Reid Show on YouTube, of course, your Substack. And it's just, I have the actual title here to give it out. It's joyreid.com. Joyandreid.com is your Substack. You can check out there and sign up for that. Thank you, Joy. I love you. Thank you so much for being on. Thanks for always speaking the truth. I buy you so much for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend. Take care.
Take care, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.